You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in and talk some Noles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This live show is going to be a little bit different than some others that I might have done because it's going to be more categorized, not quite as broad, I hope. But then again, there's going to be a lot of questions, and I understand that. Happy to address each and one across all the platforms that are coming in, because I know there are more than Florida State fans coming in here to check this out. I did a podcast earlier today regarding Florida State's loss to Memphis 20-12. What's the long-term projection for Mike Norvell? I have my doubts. That's definitely in limbo. I don't think Florida State can do anything to make this quick turnaround. This is a long-term deal, so there's a lot of discussion. You might as well have it. This is going to be a long season, a very dreadful one. So with that, I have three areas that I want to discuss. First one's the most basic. I want to get it out of the way. I did some research talking with some people, and I also read up other people in the world of journalism. What do they think about Florida State? So I want to read some quotes from various people that follow the Noles, who go out of their way to write about the Noles, podcast about the Noles, college football, gambling, you name it. And here are the comments that I have. This no particular order, by the way, but these are some of the comments. This one, the very first one, is my favorite of the group because it gives a rounded perspective of Florida State football, but it also just kind of words it uniquely. This is Chris Nee from Noles 24/7. He states, through 3 outings, Florida State's offense is a failure by nearly every metric. Inoperable at times, and the anchor that is setting FSU up for a season of epically bad proportion. In other words, Florida State's offense is just dragging it down. Chris brings up a good point because obviously the defense improved quite a bit yesterday, especially the second half. I thought they played pretty well in terms of just making things happen when they had to keep Memphis from scoring. Made some nice adjustments, but they still have problems too. The secondary doesn't do a good job with switches and whatnot, and linebacker safety play, etc. But that's an interesting statement from Chris. Very well done. Listen to part of the War Chant pod, and this is a couple of comments that were there that I like the point blank nature of it. The offense wrestled it away and said, it's our fault. In other words, there were problems with the team across the board in the Georgia Tech game. Got a little better in BC in some ways, but then, quite honestly, minus the goofiness with the punt return where one guy runs into another, that's just salt into the wound. But the offense was the only complete debacle among the 3 categories of offense, defense, and special teams when the Noles played Tigers. So it's a really interesting point. I think that, again, the offense wrestled it away and said it's our fault, talking about why the Noles lost to Memphis. It's really well worded. And just a basic statement that is true is also from that War Chant podcast. The offense is a wreck. No doubting that one. Bud Elliott from the Nolecast and 24/7. I don't know really where to start. Here's a little note. I listen to the Nolecast quite a bit. I know Bud, he's a friend of mine, and they do a great job on that show. Talk about Florida State. And it's ironic he said that because Bud's a lawyer and is a very honest and intelligent man. Florida State's he's a Florida State grad. He's a guy that has followed Florida State his whole life, the whole 9 yards. Yet at the same time, he had this glossed over look on his face, kind of like he'd seen a ghost. When Bud says that, it's not a good sign. He also brings up the following in regards to the Florida State offense. Again, this is Bud Elliott, 24/7 at CBS. 238 yards against Memphis. That's just not going to get it done. That's an embarrassing effort right there. Well said, Bud. You could not be more correct. Now, I know there are a lot of people, they're going to be in the chat discussing some of those, but I want to add a couple of my own comments as well. Looking at this holistically, diving into Mike Norvell earlier today. Check out the podcast that I did this morning and put up, I believe, around noonish. It went up talking about his contract, how long he has, what he needs to do. A few things that are in that I just want to also drop into here. Number one, it is undeniable that at minimum, I have my own thoughts on which ones they need to be, but it's going to let it be. For namesake, I'm not going to name drop who I think needs to be fired. But there are a couple of coaches that need to be fired from Florida State staff. And I also think it's both sides of the football, and I also think 2 is a minimum number. That being stated, going by history, knowing a lot of coaches, high school and college level, there is one thing they typically have in common, regardless of their success or failures. They are stubborn as billy goats. They hate change beyond, like they don't want to even hear the word change around them. They don't want to hear it. It's like a 4-letter word to them. Well, if Norvell goes that route, like many coaches before him, I will tell you right now, my prediction is the following. If Norvell literally makes 0 changes to the assistant coaching staff, 0. Let's say they go out and get a good portal quarterback or one of the young guys. I don't care how it is. Even if the quarterback play improves next year, he'll still be in trouble. They're not going to maximize their talent with the current coaching staff. Keyword, maximize. It's one thing to have a team that can go 8-4. Florida State's not ponying up all those renovations inside of Doak Campbell Stadium for 8-4. They're trying to get to the playoff. They're not suing the Atlantic Coast Conference and the people associated with them in regards to the grant of rights to go 8-4. You've already established if everything lines up, you can win every game you play on your schedule. The boosters are ponying up for all this NIL, the collectives. It's not going to work. There need to be players being coached by different coaches next spring. In the offseason, the whole 9 yards, everything needs to be evaluated from top to bottom. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that, but I did want to state it for the record. Final point. I think that right now, that as much as I don't like losing the team, I understand there's been calls for it for a while, but they're going to have to start playing some of the younger guys and changing practice in some capacities that I wasn't even thinking about, say, a week ago. I mean, especially on offense, like, goodness gracious, you need to do it. Like, they already started playing Cam Davis, which I'm all for. Cam's a guy I love. He's so talented and a good young man, by all means. Probably need to be a few more. To that point, by the way, and I don't know the extent of these, having both of your offensive tackles out against Memphis obviously was terrible. But Darius Washington, you can't lose guys like that and it go well. Byers was out. We didn't know if he was going to play, but had my doubts. They need guys back. So it's not that you have a newbie coming up the ranks at every spot that's quote unquote ready. So just because guys do get inserted into the lineup moving forward, and there probably will be quite a few, doesn't mean they're going to be good right away. Just remember that. This season, barring something unforeseen, is a disaster. No way around that. It is a disaster. And I don't think if anybody could qualify at something less than that, why? Like, how could you? It's not very easy for me to understand if you could. So do what you want with it. But to put it in perspective here, this is a post that I put on X. I'm going to share my screen before break here. This is kind of a sad state of affairs, but this is just something that I asked. And again, I'll share it momentarily. I'm going to read it first. Florida State's 3-0 or 0-3. How many games do the Noles win considering the following schedule? Pick an option or comment below. All right, here's the schedule. They've got Cal this weekend. They go to SMU. Then they host Clemson. So that's the next 3 consecutive weeks. Then they get a bye. They go to Duke, at Miami, home to North Carolina, go to Notre Dame, have Charleston Southern, and then play the Florida Gators to close out the 24 season. The 4 options that I gave are 2 or 3 wins for 1, 4 or 5 wins for 2, 6 or 7 wins for 3, and then 1 win was the 4th option. Right now, it's a very tight race on this. 2 or 3 wins is ahead at 43%. 4 or 5 wins is at 41.3. Sadly, 1 win is ahead of 6 or 7, and it's not close. It's 11.6% compared to 4.1%. That is not good. So I'm going to share the screen here with that, put that up on the screen so you can take a look at it. But again, I don't know what we can really expect out of Florida State right now. But if I voted 2 or 3 wins, about a week or so ago, I said 4 wins was about as high as it get. And that was iffy. Right now, I think the 2 wins that are most likely are the Duke game, because Duke's pretty bad, and then the game against Charleston Southern. Those are the 2. Florida State's schedule is going to get worse in terms of difficulty, not easier. So that's something to think about. If you want to check out this poll, it's my normal Twitter handle, at FBScout_Florida. I don't know how else to put it. I was curious. I didn't know what I'd get out of this, but a lot of people thinking that, over a half think Florida State's going to win between 1 and 3 wins between the 2 of those categories. That's crazy to me. So it is what it is. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple other things that are similar. Still have 2 really key ingredients to talk about. The next one is a lot of numbers, and they're crazy high for all the wrong reasons. I'm going to talk Florida State's offensive statistical rankings. Oh boy, they are brutal. And then after that, we'll get into the chat a little bit, and then we're going to talk buy or sell and some more chat. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you tried 5-Hour Energy lately? Remember, this is something you can get at your convenience store, your gas station, your grocery store, and a lot of other places. 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Whether you have a long list of things to do or do-it-yourself project that you need to tackle at home, 5-Hour Energy is a shot you can check out and get everything done on your list quickly. If you're like me, you'll always have a large list of projects at home. That's definitely true. When you get your supplies for the project, do not forget the most essential supply, which is a 5-Hour Energy shot. So get in the zone with 5-Hour Energy shots. Give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. With no sugar, convenient, portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today. You can use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This order is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, let's talk a few stats here. These are straight off the screen. I wrote them down, put them in the order that I wanted for myself. But man, oh man, are these crazy bad. Like, these are all offense, just for the record. And you just can't make this stuff up. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. All right. The first one it's kind of comical to even say this out loud. A few of the titles that I'm going to read probably going to make people laugh, but like, why would you talk about this? I just want the numbers out there for the state in this that I have, like how much I go into it. And it's mind blowing to me. So points per game, 15.3. Florida State, and there are 134 teams in the FBS this year. Again, 134. Florida State is 124th in scoring. Total offensive yards, 274 a game. They're 128th. Wow. That's just incredible to me. Passing plays of 20 yards or more. They have 9 so far this year, which surprises me. It's a little higher than I thought it would be. That's 62nd. Running plays of 20 or more yards, they have 2. That's 93rd. Wow, that's just crazy. Passing touchdowns, they have 1. That is 128th in the nation. When did you ever think Florida State would struggle with passing touchdowns? It's like bottom of the board. Rushing, they have 3 touchdowns on the ground. That is 90th. Third down percentage, they are 10 of 38 this year, 26.3%. That tells you all you need to know right off the bat. Out of 134 teams, your Noles are 126th. I combined this stat, did a little extra research. Only 42% of Florida State's passes have traveled 10 or more yards. It's a combination of a couple of things from Pro Football Focus. They do a good job on some of that stuff. So it is true. It's obviously been talked about to death that Florida State does not throw the ball down the field all that much. So 42%, I mean, with the kind of arm DJ has, you would think it'd be 50%, 10 or more yards away from the line of scrimmage. Apparently not. Your DJ used passing numbers, 56 and 99, 56.6%, 666 yards, 1 TD, 2 picks, and the atrocious 6.7 yards per passing attempt. If you're at 8, you're average. They're at 6.7. Oh boy. Third downs. DJ is 14 of 26, 53.8%, 173 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, only 8 first downs out of 26 passing attempts. That's less than a third. I mean, that's really, really bad. He has been hammered, and this next stat will go into this, with some drops. Because Holmes had that screen against Memphis. That was a big drop. That could have been a huge play. Set up well, good timing. He's a very good athlete, but he just dropped it. Maybe they're pressing. I don't know. But overall, the pass receiving grade for Florida State through 3 games is 89th in the nation, and it's 64.6. I mean, Florida State, with its ability to run, the size they have, etc., that should be 75 or higher. To be in the 60s at all is pretty porous. To be at 64.6 is kind of unexplainable, to be really honest with you. So I'm going to jump into the chat here. I don't know what to think about some of those numbers. I'm still blown away. Matter of fact, I want to read 2 more numbers here. Rushing offense. Let's see where Florida State's at. Let's see where Florida State. It's got to be just like, oh my gosh. They're 133rd in the nation at 52 yards per game. There's only one team below them, and that is Miami of Ohio. Literally the worst team in the FBS. Passing offense, Florida State's not near as bad. They are number 74 at 222 again. Okay. Now I'll get into the chat. Those numbers, though, come on, man. That's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing. So I'm just going to start at the top of the chat here, and we'll go from there. Got a lot of thanks for all the people that I may not get to all of these. There are a ton in here. Jake, with the great one to start. Don't let the depression get to you. Jake, I don't know if I'm depressed yet, but it's pretty bad. Tribal Chief says same thing. Don't let regression get to you. Let's see. Mr. Kool-Aid Makers. Which assistant coaches would you turn over at the end of the season? I'm not going to name names. I do have a few that I think are kind of obvious. And part of this, for the record, is not just game day stuff, development. It's recruiting. I talked about that pod on Saturday morning before the game even started between the Noles and the Tigers. You're in the position you're in at quarterback, etc. The 20 and 21 classes didn't get done. That's on Norvell. He hired the staff. But they still got to execute. You can get better at recruiting. It's easier to recruit at Florida State than most schools. It's not that hard. Florida State conservatively is a top 15 job in the country. And you're not a top 30 team by a lot of the metrics right now in recruiting. And I'm quite sure you're going to lose several other guys. Those are unacceptable answers. Let's see. All right. Guy Davis. I enjoy listening to Bud's game analysis. Yes, Bud Elliott does a great job with that. No question. If I have a question about Florida State, he's probably the first guy I'm going to ask. Tribal Chief. Fuller and Shannon for damn sure. Bye-bye. I wouldn't be all that surprised by that. I'll get that junk off there. Let's see here. Seminole big boy. Someone needs to start calling the play calling. I mean, calling out. I mean, I thought it was okay yesterday in certain spots, but like they're getting so many plays blown up. I believe Memphis had 12 tackles for loss for over 70 yards. I mean, they had 4 sacks. It's like the offensive line's a sieve. Again, both tackles were out against Memphis. That's a problem. Let's see. The one bright spot for Florida State is the kicker. 50-plus yard field goals are automatic. Yeah, Fitz is 3 for 3, right? Isn't he 3 for 3 on Is a 52, a 54, and a 59? That's ridiculous. Good for him. He's going to get paid. Ryan Fitzgerald's like legit. Only Sertan, Yak, and maybe Dugans. Everyone else can go. That is from NK. Meh. Someone also needs to take over offensive play calling. I'm not against that, but as I talked about earlier today on the show that I did, just a baseline show, Norvell has experience coaching guys that are both mobile and pocket quarterbacks. So in 2019, when he basically won the opportunity to get the Florida State job, they went 12-2 at Memphis with a pocket quarterback who had negative rushing yards on the year. So like he's done it before. It's weird to me that they're not just bad. They're so bad. Their offense is not even worth watching. It's hard to put into perspective. Oh, let's see. Here's another interesting one. Landon Oakley states, gotta love the casuals who defend DJ and act like he's not the issue. He's a major part. Here in just a minute, I'm going to read a few more comments. I'm going to do a buy or sell. Part of the buy or sell is going to be rankings and putting things together, buy or sell this position, etc. And I'm just going to do a generic rankings for the offense from quarterback to O-line. How would you rank them? I'm going to talk about, put that in your mind now. How would you rank them? I have my own list. I'll give out my answers just a little bit later. I want everybody to think about it. I certainly don't want to influence anybody, but mine might be different from some other people, and I'm going to explain mine. If you have a comment about it, fire away. More than happy to listen to you. Let's see. Blake Nagy, DJ ain't the only problem on this team. Laugh out loud. No, there's pretty much everything besides the kicking game is at least somewhat problem. By the way, shout out to the front seven for at least playing pretty good defense against the run for most of the game against Memphis. They did a pretty good job. Joshua Farmer took by far the biggest step forward. I don't know why that is, but he was much, much better against Memphis. This is funny. Seminole big boy picking one win. That's Charleston Southern, I assume. NK, I'm between 3 or 4 wins. I mean, if they got to 4, I think they'd be ahead of the curve. Think about that statement, though. Think about that. When was the last time you said it was okay for Florida State? Not that it's okay, I guess, but there was even an option. That's a better way to put it. Florida State with 3 or 4 wins. Really? You know what I mean? Like, name a team that's this bad after winning even 10 games, let alone 13 the year before. I don't care if it's Florida State or otherwise. Name somebody. I cannot. I've tried, but I've just not come up with anything. This is hilarious. I don't know if this is realistic or not, but Tribal Chief Noles, Charleston Southern 21, Florida State 24. So they win by a field goal against Charleston Southern. Brother, that's pretty bad. NK, it's problems all over the field, and most importantly, with the staff that's evaluated DJ and thought he was good. I talked about that. NK is 100% right. When was the last time you felt good about Florida State as it relates to their evaluations and how things go with recruiting, and now to a certain degree the portal? Because, I mean, until this year, no doubt Florida State was the portal kings in terms of hit rate. Not only getting guys, okay, this guy contributed, blah, 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 like dudes. They just had a portal guy that transferred in and was a first-round pick. They had a guy that went early in the second round. They had another guy going middle second round. Like, they killed it. So why is it so bad now? It's crazy. This is funny too. Witted official, USF second best team in Florida. Doubt that. But still, it's interesting. It's not defending him to say he's not the only problem. It's the truth. I'm for Luke over both DJ and Brock, but this offense is horrible, and it starts up front. I think this is from Blake Nagy. I think Blake is referring to the quarterback play and comparing it with all the other positions on offense, but he thinks the O-line might be the biggest problem. And it could be. It's certainly there. I'm right there with you. I have an interesting take on that a little bit. Again, top of your head, if you just want to put it in the chat, I might read a few of them. Rank the positions on offense: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line. So there are 5. If you're in the chat, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line, just rank them. Curious what everybody thinks. Mr. Kool-Aid Maker, at this point, I'm rooting for them to go 0-13 just to see it. The season is already gone. Oh boy, that's bad. That is bad. Let's see. Teams should be ashamed of scheduling cupcake teams during the regular season to pad their stats. Shame on Tech, Boston College, and Memphis. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Jimbo, there is a reason why he got the biggest buyout in college football history from A&M. He is a scumbag. He is a pretty big scumbag from what I've heard from numerous people. Midtown has a point. I'm curious about this too. Looks worse than Norvell's first year. Agree? 2020, Norvell and company, I believe they started 0-4. Was that 20 or 21? They started 0-4. I forget, but it was bad. I get the years mixed up. That 20 team is bad recruiting. You had a lot of transfers. They just didn't have much going for them. Jim Ike. Didn't one Nole player in the interview boast we can match up against anyone? 0-3. Yeah, Jim, that's probably not the best idea to say that, right? I agree. Lane Kiffin should be your first choice, but FSU is broke. That is from Armando Parra. I'm going to talk about Kiffin momentarily. I want to read a few more comments. I'm glad that Armando brought that up, but there is a lot of stuff going on. Napier may be fired before I even finish doing this podcast. So there's a lot of possibilities there. We'll see how that goes. Tribal, he left Memphis. Only them combed their hair to whoop his punk ass embarrassing. Yeah, well, that's fine. Panama Jack, does Alex Atkins help having him back on the sidelines with O-line chemistry? I would think so. But again, we don't know who's going to play. Alex Atkins, coordinator, O-line guy. You would have to think so. But both tackles are out. And there were a couple plays. Just a side note here on O-line, or on the point of it in general. A couple of plays that I randomly watched Mo at center. He got smoked. That's a 60-year senior, and he's been a really good player. I don't know if he's banged up, but he just didn't look himself. That's pretty bad. I don't understand that, because he was one of my favorite players last year because he competed so hard. Ron Lowry, 12 points against Memphis, about 5 question marks after that. Yeah, that's a problem. Let's see. Norvell is a great assistant coach, but not a leader of men. Armando Parra. I think a lot of guys kind of fit that mantra in football. I really do. I don't think that it's going to be all that different for many of the guys that are in this chat, many of the gals in this chat. Football is pretty different. You've got to have a specific ability to get people to believe in what you're doing, because football is the ultimate team sport. You have over 100 guys on your squad. And finally, it's the media and all the things on the side with the boosters. You got to get people to buy in. Not everybody can do it. And I've heard a few of the key boosters for Florida State really like Mike. That's great. But right now, I don't think his players do. There's something that's a disconnect, and I've never been able to figure it out. I'm not going to try and sit here and say I've suddenly figured that out, but we'll see. Jim Ike says, Cal 36, Florida State 10. If it's that bad, there will be boo birds and a lot of empty seats. Chad Bueller, not to be doom and gloom, but has a team ever gone undefeated followed by a winless season? I don't think that's the case. Chad, if it happens, holy moly, that would be incredible. Tommy Guns, Norvell has gotten money. He's just going through the motions now. Norvell brought DJU in. Let's start with that question here before I go into buy and sell overall. Is Norvell, with all the decisions he's made, is DJU the worst one he's made? I say no, and I'll explain that in a second too. I'm going to say DJU is the second worst. Number one was the hiring of his staff. And I think multiple guys need to be fired at the end of this season. But there has to be something to the DJU thing. And that's why I did the podcast this morning. Again, go check it out. I did it this Sunday morning. It went up noonish. And it's talking about Norvell. Is he on the hot seat? He brought in these guys. It's worked before, but he's used different kinds of quarterbacks before. He's always had success. DJU is having his worst season in 5 years. The 5 years he's been in college. It's a fifth-year senior. It's your worst year? I know Florida State's not loaded this year, but dead last? Come on, man. That is problematic. That is problematic. Midtown. Someone needs to take over recruiting. Someone needs to take over play calls. Someone needs to take over quarterback development. When are people going to admit someone needs to start to take over head coach? Hey, man, if you haven't seen it, that podcast literally went up about noon today. He's, in my opinion, just for the record, Norvell won't be fired after this year, but his leash will be about an inch. By game 5 in 2025, he'll either be in or out. That's my opinion. And that's only, he'll get that long if he makes staff changes. If he doesn't want to do staff changes after this year, who knows what will happen? Because they're going to have one of their worst seasons in 50 years. It's not what you're paying him for. And by the way, his contract's about $10 million a year. Let's see. Let's see. Chad Kinsler. We were told wise all spring, summer, and fall by Norvell how good this team is, and it's the best low line he's had. That is a good point, Chad. I don't know what to tell you there, brother. It's pretty daunting to figure out how did you go from one of the best units, blah, 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 you've had to, you can't block Georgia Tech, BC, and Memphis. Jake says, although I don't agree with him, it's only 3 games into a year. There's still hope for a 500 season. Is there? You sure? Not sure about that myself. That's a really bad one right there, man. That is really bad. Midtown, great quote. Cam Ward would be 0-3 with this team. Clemson fan here. Don't kill me. I'm just a vibe. Florida State played DJU 2 seasons in a row. What did Norvell want to see to want to bring him in as the starting quarterback? Great question. It is a legit question. Why did you see Torrey Sims? Norvell is loyal to his coaches, and it's going to cost him big time. I'll say it again. If Norvell makes 0 changes at the conclusion of this season, it will cost him his job. 0 doesn't work. XM88. Let's fire the coaches. Warren Hester. There just isn't a top coach out there that can recruit and has been proven a winner. Very slim pickings. I was waiting for somebody to say this because it's true. One of my all-time favorite sayings in the world of business, recruiting, college football, whatever one you want to go into. It's not who you fire, it's who you hire. Quick, name a coach with all of the following combinations. Put into one neatly wrapped gift box. FBS head coaching experience, preferably 7 to 8 years minimum. A winning record. Shows consistency against top teams, but doesn't underwhelm like they did yesterday, ironically, at Florida State against a team that have more talent. Is good with boosters, good with the media, and is definitely a guy that can get top 10 classes. And it's all proven on all facets with the points I just made. I could go on, but who is that? There aren't many. To that point, I want to bring up a Lane Kiffin moment right now. I have heard that Kiffin is the guy for Florida. Just want to bring this up. And there's something interesting about this. Timing is important with these coaching hires too. And Kiffin is, man, they got a good team at Ole Miss this year. Let's say Florida really does want to hire. Here's the problem. They're going to go to the playoff. National Signing Day is December 4th. Florida's class is going to crumble, obviously, just like Florida State's is. They're going to get rid of Billy Napier. That's not really a shock. It's just a matter of when, not if. Is Kiffin going to walk away from the Ole Miss job to take the Florida job? Because I don't see Florida wanting to just completely tank their recruiting class and the portal and all that while he's at Ole Miss. It's like, you can't work both jobs. Can't do it. That's the other part with this, with the new date, with signing day being earlier. It's really awkward to sign college coaches. They're still working at their other job. They're under contract. It's awkward. It looks bad if you leave a team for the season. Like, they're going to be, this isn't a Florida State Florida problem. This is all teams that ever make a decision now with recruiting and everything else. It is really hard. So I don't know what you can do, if anything, to make that work. So, I mean, next year, let's say Norvell comes back. I expect him to. Kiffin may not end up at Florida, even though I know he's interested from everything I've been told by numerous people. Why would he walk away from Ole Miss and a chance to make a deep run in the playoff? He's got an NFL quarterback. He's got a pretty good defense, got a lot of speed on offense. I think they're going to be pretty good. So that's just my opinion. I don't think Florida's going to get him necessarily. Who would Florida hire if they didn't get Lane Kiffin? Think about that for a second. Some are talking about Urban. I've heard Urban wants the job, wants to get back in. I don't know if they would take him. That's hard to say. As for other names, I really don't know. I'd love to hear what people have to say, but the whole Urban thing, that's pretty interesting. All right, let's jump back in the chat here, then I'll go to buy or sell. It's pretty crazy, though, with the Kiffin situation. Could be a barometer for a lot of people. Oh, good grief. I completely disagree with this. Chess ready. FSU missed on Coach Prime. Coach Prime is not the answer. He doesn't even do hardly any in-home visits with recruiting. He would struggle. Not the answer. He has terrible clock management. He's not experienced enough. This is not a place to learn on the job. Panama Jack. We only lost 2 O-line from last season and brought in 2 transfers to fill out the void. But my question is, it seems Alex Atkins may have missed on development of early in our like I said it the other day in the pod on Saturday. 20 and 21 classes. Florida State's O-line recruiting was terrible. Terrible. They just didn't have anybody that figured it out. Fisher did it and won one at Florida State. I don't know what that's referring to. You want a title, but I mean, it can obviously be done at Florida State. That's not a question. Blake Nagy. Recruiting and development of players is a big concern. Amen to that. Tribal Chief Noles. Boy, can you imagine the Heat if they go 0-4? Let me tell you something. They're not going 0-4. They're going 0-6. They got Cal coming up. They ain't winning that game. They're not. They're not beating Cal. Then they go to SMU, maybe, but they've got a mobile quarterback who Florida State always struggles with. And then they've got Clemson. Do you think Florida State, with their offense, is going to move the ball against Clemson's D? Yeah, I don't either. They're going to start 0-6. You heard it, 0-6. Let's see. Jake. Oh, boy, I hope this is wrong. I really wouldn't goof on Charleston Southern much. My boys choked on a big bone against Middle Tennessee State, and I'm sure that Notre Dame was expecting Northern Illinois to lay down too. Hey, he's right. Like Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, and there's always a few games like that this season and every other. Don't take anything for granted, but Florida State's best chance to win is still Charleston Southern. That's sad that we're having that conversation. NK. Notre Dame. He doesn't protect his own son at quarterback. The trenches would be even worse at Florida State under him. Yeah, that's another problem. Willie Montez. He is the man. People don't do this. Mike Norvell will take his pass where Bobby got us. Could not disagree more. Comparing him to Bobby Bowden is laughable. No offense. I do not see that. ZL Kobe. Any benefit to starting Brock Glenn or whoever the next true freshman may have is? Yeah, there are. To build some momentum and get a feel for them for next year because DGU is not cutting it. Here's my take on the quarterback thing. At minimum, Norvell and his staff have to put people in there that can get it done consistently around the quarterbacks. And right now they're not. But then you still got to get the quarterbacks in there and get them some game experience like he's talking about. I don't know which one plays. I assume it's Brock Glenn. But they got to at least rotate with DJ. It's pretty bad, to put it mildly. It's pretty bad. I don't know how you could not think that at this point. It's really tough. Here in just a moment, we're going to do some buy or sell, even including discussing whether or not Norvell needs to go this year, next year. What are your thoughts on that? That's next at Locked On Seminoles. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to read off a couple of these questions, and then I'll read some comments from the chat as I go along. When does Florida State win a game? This is something I could even share my screen on this. I've got it somewhere. Here. Their schedule is not very friendly. Here we go. Cal, at SMU, Clemson, bye week, at Duke, at Miami, home to North Carolina, at Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, and Florida. I'm thinking they win their first game at Duke. That is a ways away. I think they're going to start 0-6. That's what I think. So we'll see, but that's my take on that. What does everybody else think? Anybody think they're going to win against Cal or SMU? They're not beating Clemson. That's not. They don't have enough discipline right now to do that. They shoot themselves in the foot too much on offense. How many wins for Florida State this year in total? Again, I've talked about this earlier. I think they're going to win 2, Charleston Southern and Duke, and that's it. Curious to hear what everybody thinks. But now the one that I think is the hardest. Rank Florida State's positions on offense. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. Here in about 10 seconds, I'm going to give my own opinion on what I think the ranking should be. From 5 to 1. Right now, the number one position to me is running back because they've at least made some good plays in the running game and the passing game, but they're far from infallible. Pass protection's not always great, not always hitting the right hole, but they are giving effort. And they, Topili, Rodell, Cam, etc. They've had some good plays from a lot of different guys. I think that's top of the board, no doubt about it, kind of deal. So they're well, I think that's easy. The worst position, the fifth best position to me, is tight end. Going into the last game against Memphis, they had one catch for 12 yards. Although Morlock did have 3 catches for like 50-some yards against Memphis. So that's good. They just really hadn't contributed much. Fourth was O-line. Self-explanatory. Both tackles are out. Ugh, that's a big problem. Then you got DJU. Believe it or not, I got wide receivers next to the running backs, and it's just because they're not throwing enough down the field for me to really know how bad they are, and they've dropped a bunch of balls. You could interchange a few of those if you wanted, but it's crazy. It really is. So I think Florida State is a unique offensive team in that they just don't ever seem to have more than one position playing well on a given play. It's crazy. All right. Does Norvell need to fire assistants? If yes, if you believe that, put in the chat, if you're on the YouTube chat right now, which ones and why. I'm curious. How long does Norvell get is another question. I think he's done after next year at the latest if things kind of go on this trend. I think most people feel the same. Could he get fired at the end of this season? Yes, but he'd have to be like a 1-11. You go 1-11, you're always on the hot seat to get fired. Here's the other really interesting one, and I touched on this with some of the stuff regarding Lane Kiffin. If they got rid of Mike Norvell now or next season, name a coach or coaches that you think are all of the following. Somebody you'd want, somebody realistic, and somebody with a proven track record at the college level, which means they can recruit. It is proven they can recruit. I don't think there is a guy like that. I don't. Who are you going to hire? So I'm not saying they should necessarily get rid of Norvell this year or next year. That'll play itself out. Who are you going to hire? This is a very awkward scenario. There aren't many guys that I can think of that would fit that. But I'll get back into the chat and we'll see where we go from there. Chess Ready says Kiffin would be moving backwards. No, there's some truth to that. Blake Nagy, Urban back to the swamp. It's possible. It wouldn't shock me. It honestly wouldn't. Robert Rock says, DJU is a statue. 0 mobility. Looks like redshirt freshman in first game. How did FSU staff not see this? This team has 0 heart. A 500 season would make the season a success. Robert, this Florida State team's not going 500, brother. It's not going to happen. They stink. They suck. They have squandered more opportunities than I can count, and it's only through 3 games. There are 9 more to go. 9 more. 9 more. That's crazy. Guy Davis. Not a large number of guys with FBS coaching experience in 7-8 years really brings it down. Yeah, that's what I mean. This isn't a Florida State problem. This is anybody making a move this year or next. For whatever the reason, there just aren't many guys that are in spots you're like, okay, this guy doesn't really want to be there. He doesn't fit. He's had some success, but he's not home. He's across the country, whatever. For any school, name the guy. I don't know if there is one. I really don't. This is an interesting thing. Tribal Chief Noles. What about the guy who won with Joe Burrow? There's a couple ways I could take that. If you're talking about the Cajun man, he's down in South Beach living with a woman half his age. The guy got fired at LSU. But the guy that was the coordinator, quarterback guru, he hates recruiting. Hates it. I met him, neat guy. But he's an offensive mind, wants to be calling plays and just doing that. He's an NFL guy. Forget his name, but he's an NFL guy. So that's not happening. Torrey Sims, Charlie Strong again. Oh boy. I know old Charlie, he's a great guy, but I don't think he's going to be a head coach again. Interesting call here. Chris from Perry. Brian Hartline would be a good hire. Chess Ready says Florida will get Brian Kelly. I don't know why anybody want to hire Brian Kelly right now. There were some plays, but DJ had all the time in the world, and he held on to the ball. That's true. To me, that's a quarterback not taking all the reads and is locked in on his first read. I don't know if he's got much of a clock in the back of his head. I'm a little iffy on that. It's pretty bad. Tribal Chief Noles, 1 touchdown pass in 3 games. Yes, that is correct. Remember the one he threw against BC? They ran some kind of combination route, and one guy broke out from the slot, and both DBs went with the inside breaking route. I mean, there's nobody there. Complete bust. And he missed the guy badly. Come on, bro. Let's do better. Blake Nagy. Wouldn't it be funny if the only team we beat is Miami? No way that is happening right now, okay? Miami is going to kill Florida State this year. Let's just call it what it is. Florida State is averaging a little over 250 yards of offense a game. Florida State is in trouble in that game. Miami's number 1 in the nation in passing. Yeah, you're going to beat Miami. Come on, man. You got to be realistic. Yo Fly. So a Nole fan, I'm supposed to be on board for a second rebuild? Hell no, Norvell needs to go. You know what? I get it. I get it. 3 kids and dad, that Florida FSU game is looking pretty competitive for all the wrong reasons. That game will be awful. Beyond the toilet bowl. That is just the sewer bowl right now. So bad. Let's see. Chris. Florida Booster ain't going to hire competent coach. Lane Kiffin is the same as Dion as they want control. Florida won't give control to Kiffin. Yeah, it depends on how you define it. But yeah, they're like those Gator Bowl Gator boosters and stuff. Depends on what you mean by control, Chris. But that's, it's weird how they've done NIL. They want you to ask them for money for specific players. It's not just a pool you pull from. It's weird. Yeah, that could be a problem. Cuban Kane. Who would be favored if UF and Florida State would play next week? Great question. I would say Florida State because their defense is pretty good based on the Memphis game. They weren't good early, but they played pretty well. I was watching Florida against A&M, and one of A&M's biggest problems is their O-line. It just is. They were pushing Florida all over the field. First-time starter at quarterback, didn't have to throw much because they just handed off where he took off and ran. And they still scored over 30. That's not a good sign. Let's see. From Jake. After watching 3 TV interceptions for a season and a half, why doesn't someone take a look at what DJ does the best and put a package together for him that works? I'm sure his confidence is shot right now. Yeah, I talked about that, but he needs to be a part of that too. Like DJ has to tell him, this is what I want to run. We're 0-3. What do you have to lose by asking me? I'm not blaming the players. The blame for the consistency, poor performance-wise, is squarely on the coaches. If they can't fix it, then Mike needs to hire someone who can. Like I said, they need multiple guys, multiple, to be let go after this season. No doubt about it. Trav, maybe the loyal to your uni? I don't know what that even means. Brock Glenn is worse than DJU, sadly. That is from Keep Chopping. I don't know how you could say that. Brock hasn't played enough yet. And if he is, Lord help anybody that follows Florida State in any way, shape, or form, media or otherwise. Chess ready. FSU has just to focus on the run before switching quarterbacks. They can't block anybody, that's for sure. They need to focus on something. All right, we got Chris. Prime issues with O-line isn't in a great school, but the people want to get into year 2. Norvell is 5 years in. If Prime was at Florida, he will be getting all them Florida recruits. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think he's a very good coach. Let's see. Yo Fly. I'm being loyal to my university. That's why Norvell needs to go. I think a lot of people feel that way. No doubt about it. Keep chopping doesn't have a very positive outlook. He says for the final record for Florida State, 1-11 with a win over Charleston Southern. Oh, that's brutal. That is brutal. This is an interesting post. Seminole Siegel 83. I saw your video from this morning, and people are just football fans. They don't know how universities work. And I was talking about the buyout, the length of the contract, trying to get assistant coaches, all of that together. Yeah, you can't just fire coaches every 3 or 4 years. It's too expensive. But the contracts the way they are now, it just doesn't work that way. It's the assistant coaches will be the ones get really short leashes now. That's just my opinion. Klubnik will throw for 400 yards. Our DBs can't cover crossing patterns. Linebackers can't cover running backs or tight ends. Richard Brookins. The offensive line needs to start playing. I wonder if this is like the Chris Ricks situation when the line despised him and would not block for him. His career went down the tubes from there. Seminole Siegel 83. I don't think we win a game. AMAC, wow. 0-6 to start the season. That's ugly. And 0-6 is my prediction. Again, here are the next 3 games. They got Cal at SMU, and then Clemson comes to Doak Campbell. You really think they're winning those games? Why would I think they are? Why would any of you think that Florida State is? They stink. So bad. Norvell is legit. He made the wrong call on DJ. It happens. Nobody is in wheat in college now. Trav, Norvell being legit at 0-3 in the rankings. We read off a couple of these again for you. This is just offense. Points per game, they're 124th. Total offense, they're 128th. Their ability to run the football, 52 yards a game, is 133rd out of 134. Their ability to throw the football is 222 and 74th. Yeah, I'm not sure he's the guy. I'm a little concerned about that. Let's see. Oh, here's a funny one. Guy Davis. On my rankings for offense, I said, put the positions in order. Quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line. Guy Davis states, I wanted to rank them all 5. I think running back is number 1. I think receivers 2, quarterback 3, O-line 4, tight ends dead last at 5. That's where I would rank them, but to each their own. AMAC. Yes, this is true, AMAC. You really think only 2 wins? That is crazy. Well, here's the deal, man. Look at the schedule. Where do the wins come from? Duke sucks. You could beat Duke, maybe, hopefully. And you have Charleston Southern before Florida. But here's the thing. With where this season's at, the expectations and all that, when does the clock strike 0 and Cinderella's slipper kind of fall off on the effort brigade? Like, they haven't played with a ton of effort this year anyway. I worry about it getting worse, not better. See what I mean? That is a concern. Richard Brookins says, what I do not understand is why there is no cohesion on either side of the ball. That is true. Why isn't there more cohesion for Florida State? Let's talk about that for a second. Richard, well said. That's a very good question. Very, very, very good question. Same staff, same head coach. The O-line had over 200 starts combined, and that's ridiculous. Yeah, you lost. Receiver was probably the biggest question. Linebacker had some depth issues. Get it. But they got a lot of talent in the secondary. D-line had a lot of guys. Patrick Payton, Daryl Jackson, Joshua Farmer, Marvin Jones Jr. And there's just there's always one guy out of spot. Doesn't seem like anybody's taking responsibility on the field. I don't know the full answer on that one, but it's Richard Brookins with that again. And the question is, what I do not understand is why there is no cohesion on either side of the ball. That's the second time I said that. And the reason I bring it up is it's legit. Like, what are you doing? Why is it so bad? Tribal Chief, Noles, stats. I have a bunch of them, brother, and they're all bad. Florida State stinks, okay? It's so bad. Richard Brookins, maybe a time for a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. Really hard to argue with that. If FSU can't even beat Memphis, it's going to be hard winning against better in-conference teams coming up that have a better teams in the trenches. That is from Chris E. Ain't no doubt about that. That's 100% like you just read my mind. Why would Florida State suddenly be able to do it? Why? What's the reason for that? I don't see how that's feasible. It's just my opinion on it, but take it for what it's worth. Let's see here. Got all kinds of questions in here. One person, I ain't got to mention the name, said Willie Taggart is available. Oh, dear God, that's terrible. One manual. It all comes back to the CEO and his mindset, way of doing things, and decisions that are made. 100%. It's on Mike Norvell. No doubt about it. Seminole Siegel. Mike Norvell is going nowhere. Today, no. If you think he can go through this horrible season and start next year bad and not get canned, I got another thing coming to you. NK. There isn't a guy that fits all of that, but Kiffin or Mark Stoops would be huge upgrades. Possible. I watched Stoops play Georgia to win point yesterday with far less talent. He's got a connection to Florida State. Would he take the Florida State job? He'd be gone at Kentucky. I could see it. Will Florida State even have a player on the team to be good next season? Poor recruiting over time is coming back to haunt the program. This statement comes from Alan Saunders. Those 20 and 21 classes, not so good. This is an interesting comment, and I don't know if he would leave or not because they got some money there. It's SEC. What the heck is the guy's name? He's the head coach at Missouri. I don't know his whole deal, but he's won pretty well there. That would be interesting. Norvell's best recruiting ranking is 12. That's from Sports Icons TV. That's not very good. It's not. It's not very good. First one. Oh, wow, this is funny. Brett Taylor says Florida State versus Florida. First 1 to 10 wins. Boy, that's sad. Ronald Perkins, Miami versus Clemson for the ACC title, and FSU has to play both of them. Murderous. Yeah, that's not going to go well. Chris from Perry. I worked with Buster Faulkner at Valdosta. He'll be a good head coach one day. Let's see. Brett Taylor. Lane Kiffin divorced John Reeves' daughter. A lot of bad feelings still left in Gainesville. Interesting. Sports Icons TV. Defensive line coach from Texas, and he coached in the NFL, or Brian Hartline. Juan Manuel. Who would you think would make Florida State a first-rate organization? If you mean head coach, I don't think there's anybody out there that fits right now. You're going to have to take a flyer, which I know everybody wants to hear none of that, but I don't think there is one. Again, the qualifications don't exist in terms of what's available. All of the following are important. Definitive experience at the FBS level, proven recruiter, like he's naturally comfortable talking with teenagers. Hardly any adults are. Somebody who's used to competition at the big boy level, not just a downtrodden program like Illinois that's got a decent head coach now and everything, but can he coach at Florida State? I doubt it. And then finally, you're talking about a scenario where it's got to be somebody that has just got some charisma and whatnot. That's one thing Norvell has. He's easy for media and people relate to. He seems like a nice guy. All of those things are necessary because like the Nick Saban kind of coach, it's prickly with the media and a lot of his players and stuff. That's not going to work. All right. Painter Joe. Why does the defense stay in man coverage all the time? No adjustments on defense. It's the coaches on both sides of the ball. The defense, they have played a lot of man. That's kind of their history. We'll see why later, I guess. But I would like to see a little more mix-up too, my honest opinion. If you had your wish, who would you let go on the staff? Who do you see Norvell realistically letting go, if anybody? I don't want to name names, but I think there are guys on both sides of the ball whose seats are really hot. And it wouldn't be surprising if any coordinators were gone too, because that's another way to do it. Just kind of start all over and blow it up. But I'd say at least 3 should be gone if I was to guess. Two's minimum. We'll see after that. Grimy Grime. At this point in the season, I think it's safe to say that Norvell is worse than Jimbo in his last season at Florida State. Grimy, you are correct. Daytona guy. Say we only win 1 or 2 games this year and recruits bail, I think is what he meant to say. Or did that? Yep, read it's bail as well as players. Could we be the new Nebraska? No, Nebraska's biggest problem is location for recruiting. The right coach is hired at Florida State. There's talent around. That wouldn't take very long. How many coaches did Texas have in between Brown and Steve Sarkisian? That's a good question. I don't know the answer. 2 or 3? The one guy that was with Urban was the coordinator, and you also had Charlie Strong. I know those 2. We got to put the young kids in. That's according to Cake. Bill Valentine says, this is all the karma y'all complained last year, crying like a bunch of 8-year-olds. You reap what you sow. It's an interesting statement. Alan Saunders, Oregon State hid DJ's flaws better than Florida State, has better running game, better coaching, plus DJ did play with more confidence. Chris, Nebraska is better trajectory than Florida State. Nebraska is getting legit 5-star O-line and talents. Norvell can't coach nor recruit well. Painter Joe, bad coaching on both sides of the field. Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that. There's a lot of that stuff right there, brother. Juan Manuel. The funny thing I see is that a lot of the young, hungry coaches across college football, that their teams are performing very well, but will not be considered, but a Dan Mullen will. It's possible. Why would Brett leave better school at Oklahoma and SEC for Florida State in a dysfunctional ACC? Talking about in conversation thing there. I don't know who's going to go where, but right now, just as an overview, I don't think there are many coaches that are going to leave their jobs to go to Florida State or anybody else. It's pretty wild. With that, I'm going to wrap it up here today. Thank you to everybody that showed up to the live show. I truly appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun to kind of vent, discuss questions, talk about some of the things going on with Florida State football. I'll be back again tomorrow in some capacity. Might take a little. I'm going to post these, going to cut them up and post them to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, any place you get your pods, you can get them. Make sure you check it out. Please share this pod. Please like this podcast. And again, comment. You got something you want to hear about, something you want to state from today's show. I'm more than happy to hear what you got to say. I'd love to hear it. So everybody, thank you very much. I will see you again very soon. Holy cow, I'm sorry.